Am I in the frame? Possibly. Howdy folks, let's talk about tools. So today's video is going to be about some pretty simple, pretty inexpensive tools that I use here in the shop that I've picked up relatively recently. And now that I have them and I've used them, it would be very hard for me to give them up. Let's start with hand cleaner. This is original goop. This is what my dad always used. Works pretty well as a waterless hand cleaner. The problem is if you use it with water, like what we do here in the shop, it leaves this nasty, slimy residue on your hands that you can't rinse off. You actually have to wipe it off with a towel. I also don't like the way that it smells. I only bought it because they were all out of the orange goop. This is what I normally prefer to use. I also like fast orange. You couldn't pay me to use Gojo. I think it does a terrible job, and it also really dries my skin out. But recently, my local auto parts store started carrying this stuff. This is Mule Head brand Original Red. It is the best hand cleaner that I've ever used, bar none. So they advertise it as the working man's choice, VOC compliant in all states, fortified with pumice, free rinsing, no hand drying or chapping. And I can tell you that that has been the case for me. It's kind of expensive. I think I pay about $20 for this tub, but it lasts a long time. You don't have to use that much of it. Yeah, I couldn't recommend it any more highly. On that note, if your hands get dried out like mine do in the winter, reach for the farmer's secret, Utter Ball. All right, let's talk about picks. That's an awl. This is a hose pick. It's designed to jam between a hose and a barb to separate the hose. They're sometimes called radiator hose picks. This is an old one made by Mac Tools. I've probably had this close to 20 years. It has my favorite handle style. They don't make this handle anymore. It'll be a sad day if that ever breaks. This is an extra long pick, sometimes called a cotter pin puller. It's made by Gear Wrench. It's pretty handy for reaching into weird places, like if I want to separate a harness clip or something like that. And the rest of these are commonly referred to as O-ring picks. And it's one of those tools where spending a little bit more money will get you a lot more quality. Well, chances are, if you buy a pick that is made in the USA, like these, or these, that is probably made by Ullman. These say Ullman right on there. They private label for everybody. Mac, Matco, Napa, you name it. They make different style handles, and they're pretty good quality. This is actually not a pick, it's a scribe. It has carbide tips, and it's designed for scribing lines in metal for layout work. Anyway, these O-ring picks are very handy for a lot of things, but they're really not that good with O-rings because of the sharp points and the kind of, well, the large diameter of the shanks. So on a whim the other day, I picked up these, which are spoon-shaped O-ring picks. These are just cheapos made by Performance Tool, and I kind of thought they were a gimmick when I first got them, but I've found them to be extremely handy, especially this one right here, to the point that I've already broken it. So the tip's okay, but it spins inside the handle now. Anyway, the idea is that they have a nice round and flat tip that can sneak in behind an O-ring or a backup ring or a weather pack or something and pry it up out of the groove without the risk of puncturing or damaging the O-ring. And they work fantastically. And I don't know about you guys, but I find myself a lot of times having to remove O-rings that can't be damaged, that had to be reinstalled. I've also found it to be really handy just as a pry bar. Stick this little end under a electrical connector clip or something and pry it loose. These are fantastic. I don't know if I would recommend buying these Performance Tool ones. They're cheap, but you get what you pay for. I can't find a company that makes them in the USA. Snap-on makes one. I don't know if theirs is made in the USA. I see Astro Pneumatic has one that they're selling now. There's some other ones on Amazon, Nico or whatever. I'll try to hunt around to find a link, but yeah, these are well worth owning. And I kind of have a thing for pry bars, if you can't tell. This is just a small sample of my inventory. I've got a couple of traditional pry bars, heel bars. This one looks kind of like a screwdriver. It's definitely not. And then these guys here, you don't see them very much in the automotive world. These are called die hooks. They're very common in the tool and die industry for setting up stamping dies and presses. Got 4 different sizes of those. So I think, let's see. Those are all made by Mayhew. These guys, I can't remember who makes them. I think it's like Lakeside Forge, maybe. I bought them from McMaster Carr. That's an SK. But this is the one I want to talk about today. This little guy is a 16-inch indexable head pry bar made by Gear Wrench. You push this little button down here, and you can index the head and lock it in any position that you want. And again, when I first saw this, I thought it was just a gimmick. I thought for sure that this pivot was going to break, or that the locking mechanism was going to strip out, that it wasn't going to last. I've put this thing through the ringer, and I haven't been able to hurt it yet. I did have to regrind the backside here, because it got all beat up from me prying on things that I probably shouldn't have been prying on. But never had a problem with the locking mechanism. Never really had an issue with the tool at all. This thing is fantastic. They make these in short little sizes. They make them in great big long sizes. They make one that has an extendable handle. You pull a little collar and you can extend the handle out to twice its normal length. I think they have one that's like 6 feet long. But yeah, don't be afraid of the locking mechanism. These things are tough and super handy. If I could only have one pry bar, this would be it. All right, next up is this little fluid extractor slash fluid filler. It's basically just a giant syringe, and you can use it to suck fluids out of a cavity or inject fluids into a cavity. Has a little extension here. Gives you a little more reach or a little bit smaller diameter if that's what you need. I honestly cannot remember where I got this thing, but it is so handy. I use it for things like filling transmissions, filling rear axles where you don't have room to get a bottle up in there to squeeze in. I've used it for sucking the oil out of high pressure oil reservoirs on power stroke engines if I'm changing IPR valves. It's just one of those things where once you get it and you use it, you'll find endless uses for it. I would recommend getting one that's a little bit bigger than this. This one holds 200 cc's, so that's what, 0.2 liters. I'd recommend getting one that holds at least half a liter, or maybe even a whole liter. You can get them that are great big in diameter. You don't want it too big because that kind of defeats the purpose of being able to sneak this thing in. Also, I would recommend getting 2. Get one that you can use for used oils, you know, the dirty one, and then get one that you keep clean for injecting clean oil. And then don't mix the two together because it's pretty difficult to clean this thing out. Now, it's not a replacement for a full-on fluid extractor, but for smaller jobs, this thing is extremely handy. This is a no-drip caulking gun. This one happens to be a newborn model 112D-CB. Before I got this, I assumed that all caulking guns were just flimsy, disposable, worthless pieces of garbage. And I actually bought this one because it was advertised as being heavy duty. And when I got it, I learned that it doesn't work like any other caulking gun that I've ever seen before. So the difference in the mechanism is that there's no, how do I put it? There's nothing holding the plunger in place when you're not squeezing the trigger. So I can actually just pull this thing back right now. No problem. I don't have to hold down a lever or anything like that. It still advances like a normal caulking gun, but when you let off the trigger, it releases the pressure on the plunger. The problem with every caulking gun that I had ever used before that is that when you let off the trigger, it still maintains pressure on the plunger and maintains pressure inside the tube, And until that pressure dissipates, you get crap drizzling out of the end. It's so simple. And now that I've seen this and know how it works, I can't believe they can even sell the other kind of caulking gun. It just blows my mind. It's not something that I use every day, but every time I use it, I just think, how did I live without this? Fantastic tool. And lastly, let's talk about lights. I get a lot of questions about it. These are all rechargeable work lights. This guy here is a Husky from Home Depot. It's big. It puts out a lot of light. The battery lasts a long time. It's handy for working underneath of a truck or working underneath of a hood of a car. I don't use it a lot in the videos because the light is so bright and it's kind of an odd color that it kind of messes with the camera. But these guys here are my go-tos. So this is a Braun light from Harbor Freight, and these are Maxion lights that I got from Amazon. I believe they're called a Cyclops. The Harbor Freight lights, they're fantastic. For what you pay for them, I think it's a good value. The problem I have with them is this joint right here likes to break. This one is already broken and has been repaired with some electrical tape, and it's broken again. So it's pretty much at the end of its life. I go through a couple of them a year. The warranty is only 30 days, so after that you're on your own. These Maxion lights, I haven't had them too long, maybe about 6 months. I haven't been able to break one yet. There's a couple of things I don't like about the Maxion light. First is that they start on the lowest setting, and then no matter what, you have to click the thing 3 times to get to the highest setting, or 4 times to turn it off. I wish there was a way to program it to just go to the highest setting and then off, or to, I don't know, somehow work differently. Or if you've had it on for a few seconds, that the next press then turns it off instead of turning it to the next highest setting. The other problem is that this is a magnetic base, but if you turn the light like this, the magnet basically blocks the light completely. So the light's really only usable up to a certain point. Whereas with these Harbor Freight lights, you can bend the light all the way around and it will easily shine past the magnetic base. So they each have their place. The Braun is kind of long and skinny. It can reach places that this guy can't. This guy is short and compact. It can fit in places that the Braun can't. The magnets work a little bit differently. So I can't say whether one is better than the other. I'm glad that I have both of them, and I use them on a daily basis. I keep at least 2 of each so that I can have one on the charger at all times. Battery life on all of these is, realistically going to be around the 3-hour range, which having 2 of them, that's plenty to get me through a whole day of work. All right, folks, I think that's it. This is going to be kind of a casual midweek video. Let me know what you think about that whole concept. And let me know what you think about the constant traffic noise. It's really bad today. It's tough in the summer because when the corn's tall, it just makes a funnel and it funnels the traffic noise right into my shop. It's very distracting. Anyway, I was going to do this as a series of shorts, but I've gotten, let's just say, mixed reactions to the shorts. So I don't know if I'm going to be doing those anymore. YouTube sold that as an easy way to kind of reach a larger audience. Typically shorter videos get more views, but that hasn't been the case for me. And even if it was the case, and I did get a larger audience, I don't want to do that at the expense of my regular viewers. So unless it's something that you guys really want, I probably won't do the shorts anymore. I do have another video coming out this week. I've got a doozy of a diagnostic video on a Hyundai. It's right beside you guys. It has an intermittent misfire. It took me for a ride. Anyway, I'll try to put links in the description to where you can buy this stuff. Some of it's on Amazon, some of it's not. Either way, I'll try to put links to where you can find it or find something similar to it. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.